Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this edition at 8:05 of Wave Extra. I'm Jose Sosayev here in the Wave Now studio. Just recapping kind of the big story of the day, which if you've followed us kind of from earlier in the afternoon, you know what we'd sent is a crew outside the federal courthouse downtown along Broadway just to gauge any of those updates pertaining to what the sentencing would be for former LMPD officer Brett Hankison in the Breonna Taylor case, respective to the jury's decision to find him guilty last year, and what the judge would agree whether to take the Justice Department's recommendation for his sentencing into consideration. And so we've been there following, from beginning to end, anticipating the start of the hearing and what was playing out outside the courthouse, because remember, again, we're not allowed to bring cameras inside of a federal courtroom. All you're really allowed to bring is something to take notes with. So whether, and that's not even your phone necessarily, that would also not be allowed. You'd have to bring in a sheet of paper and a pen or a pencil to take those notes for yourself. And so what we were able to capture were the moments some of the parties were stepping inside of the courthouse in the courtroom. And so here I'm going to show you a bit of that video that our crew was able to get. And so what you're seeing there is one vantage point from our cameras of Brett Hankison stepping in for his sentencing today. Now, the big breaking news that came in around 6:30 this evening, the judge ultimately agreeing to sentence Hankison to 33 months. So that would be 2 years, 9 months in prison for that prior, or for the conviction from last year from the jury for violating Breonna Taylor's civil rights. So that was the judge's decision there. And we'd known protesters had kind of spent some time outside of the courthouse since morning. And what they really were there for protesting was the update that we broke last week heading into the weekend, more or less, that the Department of Justice had actually decided to recommend no real prison time for Hankison, just recommending credit for time served, pay a $100 fine, serve 3 years of supervised release, and 1 day, 24 hours in prison as far as their recommendation was concerned. But again, a jury last year agreed and convicted Hankison for violating Breonna Taylor's civil rights when he blindly shot into her apartment back in 2020. And even before, all of the different factors kind of converging today, the U.S. Probation Office, previously, they had even recommended a sentence for the crimes involved and for the conviction of up to 14 years for Hankison. But DOJ prosecutors, it seems, were arguing Hankison had no prior convictions. They believe he would have been a target in custody because of his connection to the case. We'd also heard coming into today that the federal judge involved in this matter had actually denied Hankison's request for a new trial, arguing that he and his team of attorneys hadn't provided substantial evidence that any errors were made as far as that prior trial was concerned. The judge, we even found a statement in the decision. It was a paper copy or a digital copy we were able to see, and the judge wrote, quote, based on the substantial evidence of guilt, none come close to affecting the outcome of Mr. Hankison's trial. So that was just some context heading into the decision today and all the intrigue and interest surrounding and that crowd of people that had gathered by that street corner on Broadway by the courthouse. And so we know going into today that's what the stakes were, what the decision was going to be, driving a lot of the breaking news that we had interrupted in, Myra and myself, throughout the evening and afternoon. And so what you're seeing there, again, just images of when our camera crews had seen Brett Hankison step into the courtroom. And so, again, that was our vantage point from there. What I want to play for you now was a moment from after the sentencing had concluded. There was a limited amount of space inside for people to be there. We know there was a stage where there were plenty of people wanting to offer victim impact statements, witness impact statements, whether it was from one party or the other. What we did hear from was from Kenneth Taylor. And if the name sounds familiar, it's because Kenneth Taylor, who was Breonna's boyfriend, or I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. Kenneth Walker. That's my confusion on the names there. So Breonna Taylor's boyfriend shooting another, this was back in March of 2020. We know relative to what had originally happened, Hankison, a detective at the time in March of 2020, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend shot another LMPD officer, but then Hankerson fired 10 rounds through a screen door into Taylor's home. None of those bullets had hit her. Several did go through the walls and into another neighboring apartment. So that's, again, the backdrop for the case, and that brought everything forward. So what you're about to hear is from Kenneth Walker after the fact, surrounded by Breonna Taylor's family and their attorneys.
These people were sitting up here talking about a dog dying. I love dogs just as much as the next person. There's no way a dog's life is more important than one of my favorite people on this earth that I saw die in my arms, basically. Bleeding out. Nobody cared. Nobody tried to save her. But y'all had so much sympathy for some dog that we talking about in here. That's crazy. So what I got from that is Brett Hankerson and his family and friends, they care more about animals than they do people.
And so what he was referring to, there's a longer piece of that kind of post-sentencing press conference where several people had come up to the microphone, but he was talking about just I guess the number of people who were coming up to deliver those impact statements, perhaps alluding to what those speaking to Mr. Hankerson's character were referring to an animal involved. I'm not entirely sure of the context for why the animal was brought up, but you're seeing him among the group there with Breonna Taylor's family having spoken to the media after the sentencing. And this was all sort of, the point after the big decision, the big suspenseful moment, holding your breath to see what would come of it. It was not the DOJ recommendation of the 1 day and the other parameters. It was also not the probation office's recommendation prior to that, which was the 14 years. This one living, of course, within the middle relatively of 33 months sentence for Brett Hankerson. Now, before all this played out, and that in itself, as you saw there, was still kind of an emotionally charged exchange and conversation there. What I want to play for you now is kind of the moments that sort of indicated to us just how fraught this might have been to start the day. Intense moments, to say the least. What you're seeing there, right on 6th and Broadway, protesters were trying to shut down the intersection. That was a Louisville Water Company truck trying to get through, eventually did. We kind of saw from the vantage point, it seems like 3 protesters jumping in front of a truck, 2 moving to the side eventually, but the other you see there in the red tank top hung onto the grill before jumping off. The truck had quickly driven off. And what I want to play for you is this next confrontation here. This was with a red Kia, and it's the same protester in that red tank top, I guess. But again, there was no police indication that traffic was shut down, and so the car traffic was trying to move as was regular or expected for them. So that just created a way more confrontation and friction. So as we stay on this particular image, and it's going to be a longer clip, the person who you see there having hung on to the water company truck and the red Kia, we now know their name, Rosario Barbara Mottola. According to LMPD, after they'd arrested her, or Mottola, and 3 others, LMPD's statement was the protesters were, quote, creating confrontation, kicking vehicles, otherwise creating an unsafe environment. Those official charges for Mottola, I believe we have those on our website, wave3.com. Now, for reference, shortly after that, we did get a statement from Louisville Water, and based on what they'd learned about this confrontation and maybe seeing the video, they'd seen, quote, "We don't recognize this as a strike by the vehicle. What the Louisville Water Company sees in the video is an employee slowly trying to move away from people banging on that car and involved in a tense situation. We're thankful the employee is okay." And at this moment, you see kind of from after that red Kia and the protester, Mottola, had that confrontation. This is when, from that one angle, you could see this LMPD car coming to the intersection. Our camera is able to capture that moment when you see a much larger group of officers then blocking the intersection completely, just to sort of cool those hot temperatures. Now, as our cameras were rolling, the woman you're seeing being put in handcuffs right there is Breonna Taylor's aunt, Bianca Austin. So again, Metro Police had handcuffed her. What this particular bit of video had not captured, though, prior to this, was that Austin, with her bullhorn, had been kind of walking, meandering around the intersection and sort of, again, trying to stop traffic and tell them to keep away from this particular crossroads. We did learn she was charged with disorderly conduct and obstructing a highway. She was set to be arraigned on those charges tomorrow morning, is my understanding. The same probably would apply for the 3 other, which include Mottola and 2 other protesters who were subsequently arrested. What you're seeing there also off to the right We're going to wait for that camera again. Our credit to our crew for having kept the camera rolling was the Matola there being arrested for what police had learned in those confrontations. And so, again, it was a tense situation. You know, as the day was starting, as these confrontations played out. This was around the time, or generally, I'd say about 45 minutes after the official sentencing had started. So from 1:30, and this is around 2:15, is when tempers really started to flare. And we saw that big group of LMPD cars, SUVs, block the intersection to just keep everyone out of the road from then on. And from then on, all those who wanted to protest on the street corner had kind of stayed off to their group outside of the courthouse. And so that was kind of then let's call it the high point, the high friction point, let's say, for any tension and confrontation in the protest. So just something to keep in mind. Looking ahead tonight on Wave News at 11, we're going to recap the big takeaways from what the sentencing implies, all those from the perspective of attorneys for Tamika Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mom, what they felt was not adequate, or their argument that it was not adequate justice based on sentencing guidelines for what Brent Hankison was convicted of. And then more from Kenneth Walker and Tamika Palmer. So that'll be some sound we're going to play for you tonight on Wave News at 11. Our Logan Perrone had spent much of his day kind of getting a gauge on what was really driving protesters' anger. So you're going to hear from Logan and what he was able to discuss with these protesters out there on the streets. So make sure to join us tonight on Wave News at 11 for those updates relative to the big story of the day. Okay, it is 8:17. There's much more news to break down, some big stories we want to share with you as we've been working hard all day on all the other stories that are happening around the community. So we're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back with much more of that here on Wave Extra. Welcome back to Wave Extra, 8:19 on this Monday evening, and much more from our reporting team. This sort of ties into the conversation of the stories that are mattering as we move through this summer period. Part of that, if you've been checking in with us every night, Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock, is just sort of digging further into the data and voices for those neighbors trying to find solutions and advocate for things that would protect young people, teens in particular, from gun violence, and the sort of the upward trend that the data has shown as far as even victims of shootings that were not deadly, but even fewer but still deadly shootings where teens were involved. And so as those concerns are still lingering, city leaders say they're hoping a new program can help decrease, at least among middle schoolers, this risk for violence, just the factors that would put someone, a child in that situation, and put them away from that. And so Wave News Wave News reporter Kirsten Foote has this update for us.
Called Get Busy. The goal is to provide middle school age kids who live in areas most affected by gun violence with new opportunities and activities. Organizations will host activities after school and on weekends throughout the upcoming school year. It's a way to mentor and enrich the kids and do what the name of the program says, get busy. And now the Office of Violence Prevention is offering 3 $116,000 grants to fund proposals from groups that address violence and promote youth development and host those activities. The hope is to bring those organizations together to help get kids off the streets.
This Get Busy grant is an opportunity for community organizations to come up and identify they are who works in these neighborhoods. They know these kiddos, to come up with a plan, a program that is going to connect to the kids in the neighborhood that they serve.
Each proposal must involve at least 3 community organizations. Programming must take place in the Russell, Park Hill, Algonquin, and Southside Americana neighborhoods. There are 3 grants available, 1 for each neighborhood. Those 3 neighborhoods were chosen because Metro leaders say they have the most urgent needs when it comes to addressing youth violence. You can learn more about the program by visiting our website. Reporting in Louisville, Kirsten Foote, Wave News.
It's a reminder there from Kirsten. We do have links to much more in-depth information. If that's something you wanted to read up on, it's on the article on wave3.com. And in a similar vein to helping stem what feels like this general high trend, this blip, or not a blip, but it just generally this let's call it a concentration of different cases involving teen and young violence. We wanted to update you. It's because, again, it's a story that follows from spring heading into summer. We've been checking in with the city of Louisville about this particular issue. Major push to address public safety in general. It seems something that was highly discussed when it came to finding different avenues for the budget and what was approved, what was included and set aside as allocated. Again, Metro Council approved $750,000. So this is in this new program. It's a call triage program. The goal is to take pressures off of ambulances, emergency rooms to, again, hopefully save lives if they're ever caught in the crosshairs. And so this month, Council approved that money. Wave News anchor Brian Schlonsky sat down for a bit this afternoon with emergency services to find out what happens next now that the money is set aside and there's a plan to move forward.
Can you guys please help me? I'm about to fall down from the bridge.
You're right past the bridge?
Yes. I'm just hanging out over the bridge. I don't want to die.
Sometimes the 911 calls are life-saving.
Having people's lives in my hands is kind of stressful sometimes. It's very scary.
Like the call Martina Warner took in early May, a semi-truck driver dangling over the I-65 overpass, fearing for his life.
He thought he was never going to see his family again, and he was just asking where the responders were over and over, so he's very scared.
I don't even know how I'm supposed to get out of here.
They're going to get you out, okay? They know what to do. As soon as the fire department gets there, they know what to do, okay?
But then there are the calls that overload the system. People calling 911, asking for ambulances and emergency rooms when that's not the level of care they actually need.
I mean, I've gotten calls of someone sweating before and wanting an ambulance to go to the hospital.
In the past 2 years alone, EMS took roughly 300,000 phone calls. Warner says she can average 250 a day. But a fix is coming soon. $766,000 going to a program that aims to reduce the strain on emergency medical services by better triaging the calls. Trained medical professionals will assess the call and determine the level of care instead of automatically sending an ambulance.
It's to keep ambulances available for more critical calls.
James Polk is managing the new program. He says right now they're in the planning stages. What is this program going to look like? There could be nurses working in-house, maybe off-site telehealth services. There could also be alternative transportation to help people get to the doctor without wasting precious emergency resources.
EMS is doing a lot of calls that they shouldn't be doing, and they're taking folks to the ERs that are weighing down the ER's time as well.
The goal is to save lives. More stories with a happy ending. Like the trucker, Warner kept calm during that daring rescue.
I was watching them take him out of the truck, and I felt very relieved that he was able to get to steady ground.
Our thanks to Brian Schlonsky for that report. Certainly, best case scenario that that driver in particular was able to get to the ground safely, not needing any urgent, immediate medical care, but interesting to see how the program plays out. As for timing to get all of this going, get momentum rolling, Brian learned the money's going to be available in October, but again, that's once the new budget kicks in, and it's a massive budget relative to the city, and the hope is something at least could be in place to get a pilot version or the initial version of the program by the end of the year. So something we will certainly be keeping our eyes on as we move still in the heart of summer, but closer when we get to winter. Now, in the vein, kind of tying this off to educational resources for young people out there, Louisville, Jefferson County, extending out further into Wave Country, we want to look at a new report. It says many schools, and this is not necessarily a regional issue per se, but that many schools have a long way to go when it comes to teaching financial literacy. Maybe it's a conversation that has gained a lot more attention recently as we kind of have these conversations. Stories touching on inflation and savings and how that matters to families trying to make those ends meet. Something obviously, our Dawn G has that segment herself, Making Ends Meet. So in today, this is a latest investigation dive into the Watching Your Wallet series. Consumer investigator Carice Jackman, she talked to Wallet Hub, so it's a resource out there for financial education. They talked about the state of classes that offer budgeting in public schools, which states are leading, which states are lagging. So let's take a look here.
When you think back to high school, was budgeting a part of your curriculum? John Kiernan with Wallet Hub says many schools are still failing to teach this essential life skill.
Only about 1 in 5 states is really excelling in terms of teaching financial literacy and budgeting.
Kiernan's team at Wallet Hub analyzed all 50 states and the District of Columbia, looking at key metrics, like whether personal finance courses are required, student test scores on financial literacy, and overall school performance. The states ranked highest for high school budgeting education include Utah, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. While at the bottom are Massachusetts, Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota, and Alaska.
Those states and many, many others do need to kind of up their game if they want the kids to really graduate and be prepared for the realities of adult life.
Has there been a big push to add this to the curriculum?
There has been kind of calls here and there, but it hasn't really been a concentrated push.
Kiernan says there are ways to learn outside of the classroom, from online resources to family discussions about money. Any step toward practical experience can help.
If parents kind of include their kids in major financial decisions and talk through things with them, kind of determine what the family should spend money on or save up for, including your kids in that really kind of helps them learn along the way.
And if you're an educator, the American Public Education Foundation offers budgeting lesson plans, tutorials, and worksheets online, all backed by extensive research. With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Carice Jackman.
And there's much more you can look into with this resource. The American Public Education Foundation also released some full report cards. So again, the theme in school here on financial literacy levels in each of the 50 states. So if that's something you wanted to look at and compare and contrast Kentucky, Indiana versus those top and bottom schools, again, this is going to be linked to our story on the website on wave3.com. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back here on Wave Extra. All right, everyone, welcome back into Wave Extra, 8:32 on this Monday evening. Looking to perhaps, if you feel like there's still time to take advantage of that summer break, summer vacation with the kids, if that's a road trip or in this case, plane travel, could be domestic flight, could be international flight. It does feel like over the last 6, 9 months, the conversation over air safety and air travel has been much more so on our radar. The latest update, not necessarily making anyone feel great. An Alaska Airlines flight had to ask for a ground stop for its fleet, full stop of the regional subsidiary Horizon Air because of a computer system outage. But again, this is something, if you've been unfortunately caught in the middle of when these systems just go haywire and stop working, whether it's been Delta or other big carriers over the last couple of years, and you're just trying to find a solution to get where you need to go, whether that's home or your destination. Meanwhile, federal investigators say they're looking into a close call between a Delta connection flight that was run by a SkyWest crew and a B-52 bomber near North Dakota. So this is NBC's Tom Costello with the latest update.
Good day. A couple of big aviation stories. Let's begin with Alaska Airlines, which last night had to suddenly ground its entire fleet. It started at about 8 p.m. Pacific time, went till about 11 p.m. or so Pacific time, because suddenly it suffered a significant IT outage. And Alaska is out today saying that what happened is a third-party vendor that supplies Alaska had a hardware failure that immediately caused them to have to ground all of their flights, approximately 200 or so, and that left passengers, thousands of them, especially on the West Coast, stranded or delayed or waiting or dealing with flight cancellations. And then finally, the airline got back up and running again. But as you know, this thing snowballs and it becomes difficult for them to catch up. Today alone, they are now looking at the possibility of about 83 cancellations for Alaska and 170 delays as they are very much continuing to catch up. The second big story happened over Minot, North Dakota, as you probably heard. An inbound regional plane, a Delta Airlines regional plane flown by SkyWest, had to make a sharp bank to the right to avoid being hit by an Air Force B-52, the biggest plane that the Air Force flies. This was over the North Dakota State Fair on Friday. The regional pilot said he simply wasn't aware that that inbound B-52 was going to have a path that might have collided with him, the regional plane. It's not at all clear if the Air Force communicated what the B-52's flight path would be, why that information wasn't then passed on to the regional jet, and it wasn't on the flight path. So that regional jet pilot is being heralded as a hero for avoiding what could have been a catastrophic mid-air crash. Both the FAA and the Air Force are investigating. We'll have both of those stories in depth on NBC Nightly News.
So thanks to Tom Costello for that. And keeping in theme with the air travel and big updates from there, Southwest Airlines. Well, now they've set a date to end their open seating policy. That was the big announcement not too long ago, but now they're letting fans and customers know exactly when this turnover to the new assigned seating policy is going to happen. And we've learned it's not going to be until 2026. Assigned seats for passengers are going to be starting January 27th. Again, Southwest announced plans to move to these assigned seats last summer, the first in the airline's history. That ability to choose certain seats is going to depend, though, on how much each tier or section is going to cost. Purchase options include standard, preferred, extra legroom seats. So again, depending on what you want, that's what they're going to set the price at. And the company says you can buy tickets for assigned seats beginning next week. So that was their update when it comes to the big open seating news from Southwest. So after the break, I'm going to bring a segment to you about a conversation I had with Metro Councilwoman Jennifer Chappell. If you know who she is, representing District 15, so kind of within a district that's close to where WAVE is physically situated. But just discussing a big event that we're looking forward to the weekend with very clear Louisville roots. We're talking about the Dainty Festival and just sort of getting ready for that. Obviously kind of diving back into our visits prior to the Dainty Festival and what the history means to the community, to the neighborhood. And so hope you stick around for that conversation, as we'll be right back here on Wave Extra. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this segment of Wave Extra. We're kind of, getting into this momentum to have a chance to talk to our Metro leaders about things going on their agenda. Obviously, if there's, issues or events, things that they want to make sure they share with you all, it's an opportunity to discuss that. I'm joined by District 15 Metro Councilwoman Jennifer Chappell. So, Councilwoman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so very much for having me.
And so today we're discussing, and just as a full disclosure, and there's things I'm still learning being a new Louisvillian. I feel like it's been so much fun being here the time I've been, but we're talking about for a neighborhood as iconic as Schnitzelburg.
Yes.
This is something I've yet to experience myself, and when you hear Dainty Fest, maybe the initial impression is you think, oh, dainty, something, I don't know, just something. Maybe the word is delicate, but just something that involves very springy or something like that. Now that I've learned, it's not quite that. It's much more involved, and there's a lot of history with it. I'd love just to talk to you about your involvement in making sure it's as exciting, as fulfilling an event as it is, and kind of walk us through what to expect looking ahead to it.
Absolutely. It's a lot, but sure. I guess also I wish I could start this off with like a really cool trivia on what dainty, the origin of that word, and why that's associated with the event. We've heard a lot of theories. One of them even includes it's a type of ice cream that was sold at the corner store where Haux takes place.
Okay.
And so it was named after ice cream. So the exact origins of dainty, we're not really sure what that is.
It still connotes something positive sounding
It
to me.
is, and if we keep looking down, we're looking at this beautiful poster for Dainty this year, and it's created by local artist Bree Bowers.
And there you can see a closer look at it right there.
Yeah, and it's really beautiful, and it's just playing on our little logo right here, the man playing Dainty. And this year is the 55th annual World Championship Dainty Contest. And so you can see 55 there with the little dainties as well. We love our artwork, and we're going to have a lot of really cool merch with this theme going on. But sure, Dainty is the 55th World Championship Dainty Contest. And this year is going to be the 4th annual Dainty Fest. And so Dainty is something that I grew up going to.
Okay, so this is something that, from a child, like, exactly what this is about.
I did. Maybe that was my proximity to the neighborhood, but it was always kind of a really small event, and we just gather in the street, and it was just like beer and bologna and playing this weird little game. It's definitely taken a new form. It's still the game. We're very, very traditionalist when it comes to that and Dainty, but we have expanded it a little, and George Houck, who started the game with his friend Charlie Vettner, who folks might know from Charlie Vettner Park that's here in Louisville, they started this back in the 70s, and it's just been a wonderful tradition. And I grew up knowing George, and he passed right after the 50th World Championship Dainty Contest at the age of 100, and that was in 2020.
That's what a life for Mr. Houck there to say, like,
very
he's
long
been
life.
through there, yes.
And he is such an icon in our community. And so for me to be able to take this on and then also organize Dainty Fest, it means a lot to me, just so that we can carry on this quirky tradition, because there's a lot of folks that it's near and dear to their heart, but we also want to make sure that we're maintaining that quirky community-ness about it. And so we're excited.
And so for the newbies like me, and I'm seeing a size difference between, here's something you brought, so this would be a little dainty is what I'm heard is described as, or no?
Sure. So this is the Dainty, and this is actually the Dainty stick. Been hiding this under the desk while we've been talking.
It's good for reference, I would say.
But I think that a lot of folks, especially if you are cleaning your house, sweeping, you might recognize this is a stick that you would buy with a, with a broom at the end of it.
It looks quite solid for that.
And so the idea is, and this is all whittled from the same piece of wood, and so the idea was young German immigrants would take their mom's broomstick and whittle down these little pieces, and they would be able to play Dainty. So it was a way that they could make do with what they had, which is, I don't think a lot of kids these days do that, or at least are that resourceful. But so this is our stick, and what you do, you put one hand behind your back or whatever, you can only play with one hand, and you try to hit this tapered end of the stick to the tapered end of the Dainty to get it airborne. Once it's airborne, you hit it a second time, and then we're trying to see how far you can hit it.
And so it's a distance contest to see how far you eventually get the Dainty airborne and go.
And it's 3 strikes, you're out. A strike is any contact with the Dainty. Another odd rule that we have, You have to be 45 years or older to play.
So this is for the young at heart, you might say, then, who remembered playing Dainty when they were kids and they still have a few tricks up their sleeve.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if the kids that were playing with their moms whittled down broomsticks are still around, but of course anybody can play. That's another rule, that's no practice, but
Okay.
I'm not policing anyone in their backyard, so if you practice Dainty, I will never know.
Talk to me, perhaps, this feels, I mean, unique, and that's probably an understatement to say, if in the years that it's been, there's been an investment and an effort to make sure this is kept coming back. If you kind of have those conversations, other parts of the year leading up to all the people who help, get this together, and the people who participate, and the people who come enjoy just the general atmosphere around it. If this is still, it sounds like to look forward to Dainty is something that, like, this is worth making sure it's a long-term thing.
Absolutely. And so when I took over Dainty, that was in 2020, and I'm actually wearing the shirt from that year. And of course, we all know what happened in 2020. And Dainty is always played in the last Monday in July. And even though we had to abbreviate that festival, we really knew it was important to have it. And so we had it at the Germantown baseball field where we could control who was coming in and going out. And then we had 50 players for the 50th anniversary. And people came in with their masks, got out, they played the Dainty, they got in their car, and then they left. So it looked completely different than any Dainty, but we were at least able to crown a winner that year and say the tradition carried on. And so now we have the Dainty Fest, and that next year I brought on a lot of local business owners to help me, whether that was making the traditional Dainty meal, which is a bologna sandwich with 2 pieces of white bread, a pickle, and a bag of plain Lay's potato chips.
Okay.
That is our classic Dainty meal. I think they used to sell it for about 25 cents back in the day. Unfortunately, with inflation, that's going to cost
Not quite the same price, if only.
about $4 now, but it's still a delicious bologna sandwich. But we were really looking to how we could sustain the event, and so we needed new fencing. We wanted to also look into live broadcasting. We have sticks that we have to make, and so the street closure, the trash cans, the security, all of those things cost money. But we also wanted to make it a little more inclusive, so if you weren't able to come to Dainty on Monday, you were able to get a little Dainty experience. And then also, our events on Sunday are also family friendly. And so we want to make sure that if you have littles and you might not want to bring them out on Saturday or Monday, then you at least have that option for our Schnitzelberg Sunday Fun Day.
Sunday Fun Day.
Yes.
Talk to me as kind of moving through this summer, what a scenario, or I guess, an environment like Dainty Fest is for you to get a good gauge on the issues or the conversations that constituents, it's a great opportunity because, everyone, it's a party, it's relaxed, everyone's, thinking of something fun to do. Feels like also a good, a table conversation, a physical table or otherwise, for people to just come up to you and say, hey, thank you for, your push on a certain issue for certain investment or this and that. Do you find that an event like this offers you that insight and that intel that feels you're making those connection points with folks?
Sure, just people telling me thank you, sharing their gratitude, and just giving me compliments. Not really.
But you also know,
hey, my trash can didn't get picked up.
But they feel like they can see you and touch you, and then they're going to say, hey,
Yes.
By the way.
Yes,
Just so you know.
it's a wonderful time, and so I'm there Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. On Sunday, you can come to the District 15 booth and meet not only myself but my legislative aide and learn more. But as always, council people don't have an on-off switch, and so whether you're at Kroger or if you're at Dainty, I'm always accessible and open to anybody that has anything to talk to me about.
For sure. Well, it's hard to put you on the spot to pick any favorites about it. Is there a favorite part of Dainty Fest that you always look forward to? Is it the actual play of the game?
I think it's this moment on Monday where you're just looking around and everyone's having a really good time and coming out and watching this completely absurd thing. But it's just such just a spirit of community, and that's so overwhelming and wonderful to see. But from the whole weekend long, there's a lot of really fun stuff. On Saturday, we're going to be, this is Saturday, July 26th.
Yes.
This will be at the Merriweather, and that's our Dainty fundraiser. And we will have a DJ, but we're also adding OVW wrestling. So they're going to be bringing their ring and wrestling in the street. We'll have a little break and introduce some folks that I'll tell you about in a second. But we're also going to have a lot of games, and so we have some lemon skeezy, which is a skee ball. We have our dainty batting cage. We also have lemon drop, which is our version of plinko.
Okay.
And so there's all sorts of games that you can play and experience dainty in that way. And then on Sunday, we're going to be over on George Houck Way, next to Houck's Corner. And so if you're looking for a GPS address, it's going to be 1000 Goss Avenue. But we're going to have a DJ. We also have a magic show. We have Neighborhood Alley. So it's not only do you want to talk with me, but do you also want to meet some of the local neighborhood associations. So that's really wonderful for people to get connected in that way. But another one of my favorite things, and these are the people we're going to bring in for the halftime of the wrestling, but the folks who will be participating in our world champion bologna sandwich eating contest. And that's
Okay, so
happening on Sunday.
competitive bologna eaters.
Yes, I'm not that big of a fan of competitive eating, but it is an interesting group of folks that participate. We've had a three-peat champion for the last 3 years, and this year he's helping us. He said, "No one can beat me, so I'm taking myself out of the mix so someone else can step up." But we'll see who that champion is.
Sure, and perhaps that sets up kind of the clash of all clashes, the clash of titans for whenever we
Right.
set the bologna belt right there. So.
Well, there's also a pickle juice drinking contest, and then I love pickle juice, but I could not imagine chugging it, and so that's a feat all in
against the
itself.
clock feels
Yes.
like it's not going to be a pleasant experience.
But we have a lot of really fun things. We also have a parade that happens on Saturday as we go. We always say we're taking the party from the Meriwether to Houck's, and so it started as a bunch of people just carrying the batting cage over to Houck's Corner, which now we still pick up the batting cage and take it around. But now we've got more people walking with us and folks in the neighborhood coming out on their porch and waving, and it's a wonderful time. We'll be throwing out candy and all sorts of stuff too.
Reminder for folks before I do let you go, Councilwoman, just the dates for them to remember, the times, anything as they're kind of coming to Schnitzelburg, and just to manage car traffic, parking, and just how to navigate around the big party.
Of course, it's all going to be street parking. Schnitzelburg is very walkable, and so hopefully you can get out and enjoy the neighborhood and some of our other local small businesses. But Saturday is going to be taking place Saturday, July 26th at the Meriwether. Things kick off at 5 p.m. and will be off of the street by midnight. The booths will be closing up around 9 o'clock, but come to that on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the parade will be leaving the Meriwether at noon. And then we'll be arriving over at George Houck Way at 12:30. And we're going to have events going until 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And then the World Championship Dainty Contest is going to be Monday, July 28th, and that kicks off at 5 o'clock. And the play will go until about 9 o'clock or so.
Do you think we'll know a winner by then?
We will certainly know a winner. We cap it at 250 participants. But I will also say that a woman has never won the dainty. And so every year, I'm really rooting for the women. And so I hope that there are women that are over 45 years old that really feel compelled and stretching that arm and getting out there and whacking the stick.
And showing that muscle and just being like, those are skills right there.
It
It's
is.
fun to see. Anything, one last question before I let you go is just, it feels like summer's not quite over, but just the context of we're always checking on updates and thinking that school is going to be back sooner than we think next month. But just for folks, as kind of that time of the year starts to settle in, are there projects or conversations or things on your radar? Because obviously, as you mentioned, being on council, you're not necessarily turning that switch off all the time. Are there things on your radar you're just looking ahead to, whether that's within District 15 or conversations, different things that are interesting to you right now?
Sure, council has been on a break. We're all still working, but that means we haven't had any committee meetings or council meetings, and so we come back actually tomorrow. Okay. And so that starts our whole, legislative period all over again. So really looking forward to getting back to work. I hope that kids have a great time going back to school. But there's always lots of great things going on. So you can always Google my office, District 15 Louisville. And our newsletter always has a lot of really great stuff in it. And then if you want more information about Dainty, since I have talked a lot and had a lot of information out there, you can go to daintyfest.org and get more information on everything going on this weekend.
Okay, and I know it's not a far walk from us, given, relative to where the office here is at Wave, and to make the walk to Schnitzelburg and just go check it out, be very practical for us to do so on the weekend. So that'd be something.
It would. Again, we have a tradition of Dainty is always the last Monday in July. Typically, that's always the hottest day of the year. I didn't pick it, but I also am not rewriting the rules on that. So I just want to say, stay hydrated.
Plan accordingly. Wear, wear like, lighter clothes and bring your bottles of water and sunscreen.
Put on your
and manage.
sunscreen, absolutely. But we're going to be there having a good time, rain or shine.
Okay, well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for
Thank you so
coming.
very much.
All right, we want to appreciate Councilwoman Chappell's time here on Wave Extra. We're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back with you this evening. Thanks again for sticking with us tonight on Wave Extra. A reminder, you can always go to the wave3.com website. Just click under the news tab and you're going to get all of our latest updates, breaking stories, investigations, further dives into stories. Of course, the forecast important because we're going to talk about that tonight on Wave News at 11 with Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harnett and the storm tracking team. Looking further into, of course, the big stories of the day, not beyond just the protest over the sentencing downtown of the courthouse, but the impact of the actual sentence itself. Much more for that, on that for you tonight on Wave News at 11. So we're going to wrap things up this evening. Appreciate you joining us on all the different Wave News social media channels, Facebook, Twitch, X, YouTube, of course, on the Wave Now app through your streaming device on your smart TV. Any of those will do as connections to us every night at 8 o'clock. Always appreciate your time connecting with you every night, Monday through Friday, starting at 8 o'clock. We'll hope to see you tomorrow, Tuesday. Until then, take care.